Hello, and thank you for taking the time to review the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection's newly created Stormwater Training presentation for 2016. This module is used for facilities that hold an active, Basic Industrial General Stormwater Permit, also referred to as the 5G2 permit. You might be asking yourself why you need to watch this video. Great question. You're watching this video because your facility has a New Jersey Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, or an NJDES stormwater permit with the department. One of the many permit requirements is to establish and maintain a Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan, or SPPP. Within this SPPP, an annual stormwater training to all employees is required. Training must be documented, and employees must sign off that the training was received. Remember, compliance with your permit is the department's #1 priority, which is why we're here today. Why do facilities need stormwater permits? Regulated industrial facilities cannot discharge stormwater without a valid NJDES permit authorized by the department. Stormwater permit distribution is dependent on a variety of factors, which include but are not limited to whether or not your facility has an applicable SIC or NIAX code. This is the industrial code associated with all activities conducted on site. If you do have an applicable code, you will be required to be regulated under the stormwater permit. Even if your facility does not have an applicable code, your facility may still need to obtain a stormwater permit if they are deemed to be a significant contributor of pollutants by the department. Facilities that had permits prior to February 4th, 1987, or facilities that ask for a permit will also be granted that request. So what exactly is stormwater? Stormwater is water runoff from a rain or snow event that can carry pollutants into the nearest water body or storm drain system. Pollutants include, but are not limited to, oils and grease, lubricants, heavy metals, sediment, trash, debris, etc. Your facility has a stormwater permit because your municipality's storm drain system does not lead to a treatment plant, meaning this water is not treated and the pollutants directly enter the nearest water body. So where does your stormwater go? All storm drains lead directly to our ponds, rivers, streams, lakes, bays, and oceans. The addition of pollutants into those surface water resources can lead to the impairment and degradation of the water body. The department's main goal through the implementation of the Stormwater Permit Program is to continue to keep the water bodies of the state of New Jersey fishable, swimmable, and drinkable. In order to maintain water quality, facilities must be aware of the pollutants entering stormwater from source materials stored on site. Here are just a few basic examples of what not to do at your facility that are direct violations of your stormwater permit. Never dump anything directly into a storm drain, or if there is a spill around a storm drain, it must be cleaned up immediately, because as we previously learned, this water is not treated before entering a local water body. Also, do not allow for any materials on site to leak or spill outside of its containment and onto the ground. See how the contents inside the drums are escaping onto the ground? Pollutants can be carried away during a rain event into the storm drain system. This picture also displays a violation due to the fact that the source material is discharging pollutants to groundwater as well as surface water. Materials cannot leak or spill onto the ground because this is classified as an unpermitted discharge and potentially punishable by fines under the Water Pollution Control Act. The scenarios depicted in these pictures must be cleaned up immediately in order to prevent future contamination. Industrial stormwater from your site is the runoff from areas associated with industrial activity. These include loading and unloading areas, fueling and maintenance areas, dumpster or compact areas, areas where materials are stored and handled, or areas where manufacturing is occurring outside. This does not, however, include stormwater runoff from offices or employee parking lots. While your facility may have only some or all of these activities, be mindful of any area that could potentially lead to stormwater contamination through source material exposure. What exactly is the source material we keep referring to? According to the NJDEP Technical Manual for Stormwater Permitting, source materials include but are not limited to raw materials, intermediate products, final products, waste materials, byproducts, industrial machinery and fuels, lubricants, solvents, and detergents that are all related to the process or other industrial activities which could be a source of pollutants. Your permit requires no exposure of source material to stormwater. Exposure of source material itself or exposure of an industrial activity to stormwater may be eliminated by either properly covering the materials or activities and/or moving the materials or activities indoors. While this facility attempted to be in compliance with their stormwater permit by moving the drums up on pallets and under the physical structure, can you spot the violations an inspector might see? It appears that this drum is exposed outside of the structure and about to potentially tip over, creating a spill. With the proximity of the storm drain being so close, the pollutants inside the drums can easily enter the storm drain system. Employees must be mindful of material handling in order to prevent spills. Another violation your inspector will identify are the drums to the left that are not undercover, not up on a pallet, and exposed to stormwater runoff. These drums need to be properly stored under cover in order to be in compliance. You should also note compliance with building and fire codes, as well as compliance with any other NJDEP permit you might have. For example, a hazardous waste or a solid waste permit. You cannot violate any of the codes or permit requirements when storing materials inside in order to be in compliance with your stormwater permit. The permit that your facility has is a general industrial stormwater permit. This is a no exposure permit, meaning you need to completely eliminate exposure of source material and industrial activities to stormwater discharges. This can be done, for example, by cleaning up spills immediately using proper spill kits, storing materials inside based on proper health, safety, and fire codes, keeping your facility's dumpsters covered, or containing or diverting stormwater runoff away from source materials by utilizing best management practices. These BMPs will be explained later in the training, but first let's take a look at major source material areas encountered by NJDEP inspectors and how your facility can address each source material concern by eliminating its exposure in order to prevent permit violations. First, let's take a look at drum storage areas. The department considers drums to be a source material and in violation of your permit requirement if the drums outside hold or have held materials regardless of the state of the drum. Even factory-sealed, unopened drums that contain materials are considered source material. In addition, drums which contain residue on the exterior or exhibit extreme rusting must be removed either off-site or stored under cover until properly disposed of. While still considered to be a source material, if the drums are empty after their previous contents have been removed, this is only after they have been properly cleaned and exhibit no residue, or if they are new, unused drums that are devoid of all contents, you may store them outside and still be in compliance with your permit. However, it is recommended that you still store these drums inside or up on pallets and under cover in order to avoid stormwater exposure. Here are a few examples of violations that inspectors have seen regarding drums. Leaking drums, or even drums that are stored outside that previously contained contents. The drums aren't covered or up on pallets. If you don't need them, properly dispose of them, or move them under cover if needed. Dumpsters and roll-off containers. If the dumpster contains industrial raw materials, intermediate products, byproducts, waste products, or residue from material handling equipment and does not contain a cover, it will be considered a source material and a permit violation. The same applies if your facility has a compactor on site and it's leaking. Dumpsters that are covered, watertight, and exhibit no leaks, or if they only receive office waste, will still be considered a source material but still be in compliance with your permit. This also relates to compactors. Compactors should be free of all debris or residue on the exterior and functioning properly with no hydraulic leaks. Remember, good housekeeping applies. Debris should not be outside of its containment. Common dumpster violations include open dumpsters containing processed materials and waste products, and dumpsters overflowing with debris. Again, sloppy housekeeping. Activities in regards to vehicles and industrial machinery are also common spots for violations. Leaking engines, grease, oil, antifreeze, and other vehicle or machinery fluids that are on the ground are all considered to be source materials. Vehicle fueling areas are also common locations for spills and contamination of stormwater. And finally, any wash water or cleaning agent residue associated with vehicles or equipment are all considered to be a source material. Materials that are stored in minimal quantities outdoors for purposes such as emergency repairs, alterations, recycling, or maintenance activities, or if the materials are intended for outdoor use, these will not be considered to be a source material. This is only if they exhibit no residue and they're not leaking. Inspections must be conducted in order to ensure that the materials outside are still in compliance with your permit. Whether the fueling areas are undercover or not, spill kits must be maintained on-site and restocked. All spills on-site must be cleaned up immediately by using the proper absorbent materials, and all of these materials must be properly disposed of. Any maintenance that is conducted undercover or inside and not exposed to stormwater will not be considered a source material. Conducting vehicle maintenance outside, not undercover, and not implementing proper measures to control any leaks or spills is a direct violation of your stormwater permit. Even if a form of absorbent is used to clean up the spill, the activity of conducting maintenance outside is a violation. Maintenance should be conducted indoors and on an impervious surface. When conducted inside, all drains within the maintenance area must be either plugged or tied into the sanitary sewer line via an oil-water separator, only with your local authority's approval. You need to ensure that the drains within the maintenance building are not connected to the stormwater system. Because what did we learn before? Water that enters the stormwater system is not treated and is just discharged to local waterways. If your drain was connected to the stormwater system, it would be called an illicit connection and punishable by significant fines according to the Water Pollution Control Act. Another act associated with fines includes conducting any type of washing activities of vehicles, machinery, etc. This is considered an unpermitted discharge and punishable by fine. Now we get to pallets. Pallets are a source material if they contain any residues or if they are broken pallets and now pieces are being washed away by stormwater. They will be considered compliant source material if they are clean, stacked, or new pallets. A visual inspection must be conducted before storing pallets outside. If they do not meet this criteria, they must be properly disposed of. So what's wrong with these pictures? Broken pallets and pallets that contain residue are considered to be source material and a direct violation of your permit by contributing pollutants to stormwater. Also notice the sloppy housekeeping practices, also a violation. Handling of materials is especially crucial during loading and unloading operations, since these operations usually take place outside. Materials leaked or spilled can accumulate on the surface and be washed away by stormwater. With this said, source materials will include spills that occur in the loading and unloading areas, bulk transfers that occur without containment, and the general rule to follow at your facility is that if the material can easily be transported by stormwater, can erode, dissolve, degrade, disintegrate, or break down in the stormwater, or imparts color or odor of any kind to the stormwater, it will be considered a source material to your inspector. All of these materials should be stored indoors or properly disposed of. Compliant source materials include raw materials, intermediate products, and final products. These materials can be stored outside only if stored properly. Should you have any questions on the proper storage of these materials, please do not hesitate to ask your inspector. You will also be compliant with your permit if you conduct material handling under an awning or roof, or if the materials are stored under cover. Note below the bulk transfer that is occurring under cover. This facility is in direct compliance with their permit requirements. In addition to the previous slides depicting common violations, inspectors also consider the following to be violations while conducting their inspections. While maintenance on vehicles and machinery is being conducted inside the maintenance building, there are vehicle fluids escaping onto the ground. Even if conducted indoors, all contaminants must remain inside and not exposed to stormwater. Here, the facility constructed housing for drums and totes to eliminate their exposure to stormwater, but the drums are leaking onto the ground. The structure is no longer functioning properly and must be fixed and properly maintained in the future. Excess inventory. If it doesn't need to be outside, properly dispose of it. Your permit doesn't allow you to store any material outside that has the potential to impact stormwater quality. Asset management is a great tool to ensure nothing is being stored outside that doesn't need to be. A side note to this picture includes the tires. Tires cannot be stored outside due to the risk of them accumulating water and creating a mosquito breeding ground. Finally, salt piles. If a facility must store salt outside for the winter months, the salt pile must be covered, stored on an impervious surface, and preferably stored indoors so it doesn't get washed away in the stormwater at high concentrations. An entire list of source material examples for each site would not be feasible, so we have only provided a few examples of problem areas inspectors encounter. If you are unsure whether or not something is a source material, ask your inspector. So how can we avoid these violations and maintain compliance with your no exposure permit? We can avoid these violations by utilizing what the department calls best management practices, or BMPs. Stormwater BMPs are techniques, measures, or structural controls used to manage the quantity and improve the quality of stormwater runoff. In fact, the use of BMPs are a permit requirement. BMPs are a form of pollution control and in turn provide for effective management of stormwater runoff. This offers a multitude of benefits which include the protection of wetlands and ecosystems, improved water quality of streams, rivers, and other water bodies, provides for the protection of water resources as well as the protection of public health, and provides for effective flood control. Examples of BMPs include covering your dumpsters. This can be done by applying a tarp or requesting lids from your waste hauler. Dumpsters must be covered to prevent stormwater exposure. These dumpsters are covered, and the dumpster in the lower left is covered and under an awning, both in compliance. Another form of a BMP are spill kits. Having these on site and stocked for immediate spill remediation will reduce the amount of contaminants entering the stormwater and help maintain stormwater quality. Remember how we talked about material handling? Having loading docks with bumpers and or overhangs for cover allows the truck to back directly into the loading area. This prevents materials from spilling out and ever coming into contact with the stormwater. Also notice how the loading area is free and clear of all debris, garbage, spills, etc., especially due to a nearby storm drain. If there was any type of spill kits should be used immediately and properly disposed of. Another example of a BMP is storing materials up on pallets and tarped in order to prevent exposure. If your facility needs to wash vehicles and equipment parts and it's not feasible to install a wash system, either take it to a commercial car or truck wash, or if washed on site, all water must be collected and properly hauled off for disposal. At no time can you wash a vehicle or piece of equipment on site without proper collection of the wash water. Any bulk transfer that occurs on site, whether it be oil or product, shall be conducted on an impervious surface to allow for easy cleanup and catch pans applied when needed. It is also recommended to be conducted under cover. Lastly, good housekeeping measures are crucial in keeping pollutants out of the stormwater. Frequent inspections should be conducted in order to ensure your facility is free of all source material. By organizing your pallets or putting them under cover, as well as ensuring there's no debris or trash around your dumpsters or compactors, these are just a few examples of how your facility can be in compliance with their stormwater permit. All of these BMPs implemented throughout your facility are documented in what the department refers to as a Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan, or SPPP. This plan is a permit requirement and must be developed and implemented within 6 months of the effective date of your permit. The Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan is a living document that is continuously being updated to include operational changes such as adding a new process, storing additional items, or even administrative updates to the Stormwater Pollution Prevention team. These forms can be found through the link at the end of the presentation and act as a boilerplate for the requirements of the SPPP. The form must be expanded if necessary to include all inventory requirements in regards to source material, as well as remedial actions. This plan is the core of the stormwater permit, and to ensure permit compliance, all employees must be aware of the plan and its implementation. This is done via the creation of a stormwater pollution prevention team. I'm sure you're thinking to yourself, there's a team for this? Yes, as employees, you are the front line in ensuring your facility is complying with your permit requirements. This is done by following the best management practices documented within the Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan. You need to be aware of the BMPs that are being implemented throughout the facility, how to address them if an issue arises, and how to document your remedial actions. There are multiple forms associated with the SPPP. For the sake of this training, we will only discuss those directly applicable for an everyday work week. Here's a look at a few of the forms within the Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan that are directly applicable to all employees. A SPPP team is compiled in order to ensure communication amongst the facility regarding stormwater issues. Again, non-compliance with this permit can lead to substantial penalties for your facility. Everyone needs to be aware of their responsibilities to ensure permit compliance. Whether that is being responsible for conducting the monthly inspections, reporting an incident that exposed source material to stormwater in order to document the occurrence, responding to an incident with remedial actions to remove the exposure, or being a part of the team that ensures preventative maintenance of the BMPs. Preventative maintenance is crucial to ensuring the effectiveness of your facility's BMPs in eliminating exposure of source material to stormwater. Examples of preventative maintenance include, but are not limited to, stocking the spill kits or inspecting drums and pallets for cleanliness. An effective SPPP team must be in communication in order to be in compliance with your permit requirements. Here, we have provided an example as to how a facility would fill out the SPPP Form 1 in regard to their stormwater pollution prevention team. Everyone's responsibilities are outlined and the team has been established. This example can be found at a link at the end of this presentation within our guidance document. Form 2 is where your facility needs to inventory all of the source materials present on site. Refer back to the slides on source material examples in order to accurately identify all materials. The form also requires how the materials are handled. Inventory examples include, but are not limited to, fueling sites, loading docks, storage areas, types of chemicals or oil drums stored on site, dumpsters and its contents, etc., any of which that would be applicable to your facility. If any operational changes occur at the facility, the SPPP must be updated to include the new inventory as well as BMPs associated with the materials. Here's an example of how that same facility would fill out their SPPP Form 2 in regards to inventory requirements. They have listed all the materials on site, their use, their storage, their handling, and continued on this page. Any additional sheets that you need to inventory all items on site will be added within the Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan. Form 4 is where all the items inventoried on site have an associated best management practice. This includes how the item will be stored, covered, inspected, etc. The form also includes preventative maintenance measures taken to ensure BMPs remain in place, that incidents are documented, and that the appropriate response to these incidents are known. A NJDEP recommendation includes creating a checklist to document BMP integrity via inspections in order to document any changes or incidents. Your permit comes with a monthly inspection requirement, which needs to be documented, and those records need to be maintained in the Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan binder for a minimum of 5 years. Your permit also requires an annual submittal of the 5G2 certification form indicating that an annual inspection was conducted, which includes any one of those monthly inspections. Links for these forms can be found at the end of the presentation. Again, another example of how the SPPP Form 4 in regards to best management practices were filled out by the facility. All corrective actions and BMP implementations are documented and known by all employees. As previously stated, as employees, you are the front line in ensuring permit requirements. BMP implementation and preventative maintenance starts with you. These inspections also serve to ensure any problems encountered during the month are recorded and actions were taken to ensure it is not repeated. All of these documents and inspections are reviewed by your NJDEP Water Compliance and Enforcement Inspector during your facility's inspection. This is more of a living document, as inspections should be organized as needed by your facility. Last but not least, the final slide that is applicable to all employees includes the annual employee training requirement. By watching this presentation, you are fulfilling your requirement for this year. All training sessions must be logged to include the type of stormwater training received, as well as all the employees that participated. While it is understood that your facility may or may not have a flux in employees annually, this training is not just given to new employees. All employees must receive stormwater training annually as a refresher. The department looks at training logs during the site inspections. Any additional paperwork for training, including logs, needs to be maintained in the SPPP binder. What you can do. The awareness of the stormwater permit that your facility has is the first step in ensuring compliance. As an employee, you are involved in the day-to-day activities of your facility and are exposed to the source material handling, applicable BMP implementation, as well as remedial actions in instances of source material exposure to stormwater. Without your help, your facility may fall out of compliance with its permit requirements. But what does that mean for your facility? If your facility falls out of compliance with any of the permit requirements, your inspector will follow up your site inspection with an enforcement action. These enforcement actions take many forms, but are mandatory under state regulations. Violations of the Clean Water Enforcement Act, amendments to the Water Pollution Control Act, as well as the New Jersey Pollutant Discharge Elimination System regulations, calls for substantial penalties in the cases of permit violations. Violations of the above regulations are subject to penalties of up to $50,000 per day per offense, so your facility's compliance begins with you. Here are some important contacts to note within the DEP. All permitting inquiries should be directed to the Bureau of Non-Point Pollution Control at the number located below. All permit regulation inquiries should be directed to the Bureau of Water Compliance and Enforcement. However, note that this bureau is divided into 3 regions: Northern, Central, and Southern. Observe the map to the right to see which region your county falls under. Here is a screenshot of the Basic Industrial Stormwater Permit page on the NJDEP website located at the link above. Main items you should note include the Basic Industrial Stormwater Permit, which provides a copy of the general permit your facility holds, the Basic Industrial Stormwater General Permit Guidance document, which will lead you to any additional guidance about the permit and assist you in filling out the SPPP forms. Please note that most of the information in this guidance document was condensed within this presentation. You will also want to note the Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan forms, which is the link that will provide your facility with the boilerplate template used to guide your facility in the creation of the SPPP. And finally, the 5G2 certification forms are the link that leads you to the form that needs to be submitted annually in order to indicate that you have conducted your annual inspection. Pursuant to your 5G2 permit, your facility is only required to submit one form annually. The 5G2 certification form is submitted to the department indicating a date in which your facility conducted your required annual inspection in regards to your stormwater permit. The time frame in which you need to submit this form can be found on your authorization to discharge page within your permit. This date of the annual inspection is simply one of the 12 monthly inspection dates you already have documented for your monthly inspection requirement. All submittals of the certification form should be submitted to the address located on this slide, or if you have set up with your inspector and permitting to do business electronically, you can simply scan the certification form and email it to the address below. When it comes to your SPPP documents, your monthly inspection checklists, and even your training documents and dates, those are not submitted to the department, but instead retained on site for review during future inspections. Thank you for taking the time to review the department's Basic Industrial Stormwater 5G2 Permit Training Module. By watching this video, you have fulfilled your annual training requirement. Remember, the examples provided within this training do not include everything your inspector is going to be looking for, nor does it encompass all of your permit requirements. Permit requirements take precedence over this training module. This is simply a guideline for your stormwater permit in order to avoid potential permit violations. Also note that while some materials may be stored inside, be sure to be in compliance with all health, safety, building, and fire codes before moving or storing anything indoors. There are many regulations regarding safeguarding, handling, storage, and protection of certain materials that your facility must be aware of. Also, be mindful of any other permit that you may have with the department and their permit requirements. Here, we have provided the link to access more information on the state's building and fire codes under the Division of Codes and Standards as well as the Division of Fire Safety, but be sure to consult with your municipal building and fire codes as well. If your facility chooses to construct or develop a building, awning, or other type of physical structure in order to eliminate exposure of the source material to stormwater runoff, you need to ensure consistency with construction and building codes within your municipality before any type of work commences. You also always need to check with your local building department and fire marshal before moving any type of chemical inside a building. The department appreciates the continued operation of your facility in an environmentally responsible manner.